So I got a couple of questions. In fact, I have three questions here that I'm gonna answer. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna answer them briefly, because if I say I'm gonna answer them briefly, then I'll just end up talking for way too fucking long. So I'm just gonna answer them. Okay. So the first question relates to getting over a relationship with an ex girlfriend and why it takes so long. Um, if what has happened is the breakup was bad enough to actually deliver a kind of trauma, um, what can happen is you enter something called post-traumatic embitterment syndrome. It's not totally respected and accepted as a way of looking at like psychology. I think it's a German dude's idea. Something like that seems to happen. In my experience, I've seen clients go into something that looks like post-traumatic embitterment syndrome. So they experience something that's painful, and then for a period of time after that incident, the whole world kind of goes dark. And it could be argued that CPTSR as a whole is a kind of post-traumatic embitterment syndrome. CPTSR, complex post-traumatic stress, is complex. It's hard to wrap your head around. It takes time and can be difficult. But one thing that is useful to come back to is just the concept of PTSD. You were hurt in a way that shocked you, that you were not ready for, and now you are struggling to accommodate that hurt. Simple. Keep it really, really simple. Post-traumatic embitterment is a way of saying you got really hurt, and because you're hurting inside, you're projecting that into the world. You feel dark and hurt inside, and now you're projecting that darkness and hurt out into the world. So everything seems to be a conspiracy that's against you. Everything seems to be, everywhere there is darkness and pain and suffering, and nobody's kind and nobody's nice and nobody's helpful to each other. And you start to lose faith in humanity. You start to get heartbroken with humanity itself, and you start to lose your attachment to people, which is a real shame. So that can happen. The other question I've got here is from another guy. Thank you for sending me questions, guys. Please make sure that you don't feel shy. Don't feel like you can't speak up. You're talking to a guy who's been through multiple bad relationships with women, because the first 2 times was not enough for me to learn my lesson. So I just kept doing it until till you learn, basically. Yes, if you put your hand in the fire, it hurts. Why does my ex-girlfriend keep passively, I think you mean, passive aggressively reframing things so that she's out on top? There is yeah, okay. It's very annoying and takes up a lot of time. Fine. So there is a mode, a frame, a model for looking at this. There is something called borderline personality disorder. When you're looking at borderline personality disorder type, modes of communication, types of attachment, you can see that a lot of it is motivated by shame. You can see a lot of it is motivated by feelings of inadequacy and a feeling less than, and feeling competitive. So the borderline might go into a flashback where they feel like they're losing in a game, and that the most important thing they can do is to reassert their position in that game. And so everything will be reframed as them in a dominance position, however petty and silly it might be, which relates to the third question, also from a guy, also about an ex-girlfriend. Again, thank you for that, guys. And it came up in the interview with this same concept. Came up in the interview with Pierre the other day. Fake analysis. So why during my relationship, my 5-year relationship, was my wife, not girlfriend, sorry, my wife using, Jesus. Okay, so to paraphrase what you wrote, it's always better if you can reduce these down to one sentence. psychobabble and psychoanalysis techniques to say what I was doing. Okay, so there is, I don't really have a proper phrase for it, but it's like a fake analysis where they will sort of, it's a very boundary breaking thing to do. It's a very smother mother thing to do. You didn't ask to be analysed, you didn't want to be analysed, you didn't say you even had a problem, but you're subjected to a fake analysis, or it might be a fake religious interrogation or a spiritual, scanning. But when you are the one being analysed, like the one being diagnosed for an illness, because the borderline experiences that as a shame-inducing experience of being in an inferior position, she or he projects that what makes them feel bad will make you feel bad. So they'll be like, well, if you're being analysed, then maybe you can fucking see how this feels. And it is, because it's coming from like negative intent, it's a boundary breaking reframe that puts them back in a position. So you'll find yourself being the recipient of false insights and fake analysis. And the purpose of the exercise is you could say, well, the purpose of the exercise is to make me feel bad. And I would say, no, actually, it isn't. You feeling bad is incidental. The purpose of the exercise is to make themselves feel better. They're ego dystonic. They need you to fulfill, they need to recruit you to fulfill the role or roles that their faulty or broken ego can't. So they feel bad. So they need to do something externally that makes them feel less bad. Not better, not good. For a true borderline, it's not about feeling better or good. This is why I would defend the case and say BPD is real and is significantly different enough from NPD that it needs to be a different diagnosis. It functions differently. The narcissist needs narcissistic supply and can experience narcissistic elation. I don't think borderlines often experience elation. They just are experiencing various levels of shittiness. So if they can go from total mind-numbing despair to I vaguely feel like I'm worth being alive to breathe, they'll do that. Yes, even if it hurts you. Here's another interesting thing. This is from a guy who was married to a borderline, and then somebody else brought it up against recently as well. The metaphor that we use with borderlines, all of us, is she was drowning, I reached out my hand to help her, and then she started to drown me too. And somebody said it to me and something clicked in, because I've used that metaphor, and then something clicked in my head, like, why do we always use water? Why is the water in the drowning metaphor? And then I glibly said to this chap as a joke, and then thought maybe there's something to it. Well, in the unconscious dream psychology, water represents emotion. And water also represents the unseen, dark, unconscious forces that can motivate a person's behavior. What is the issue with borderline? It's unprocessed emotion and overwhelming emotions that they really, really struggle to deal with, that they need you to deal with. Now, when you speak to borderline, sometimes they'll tell you they feel like they're drowning. They get the panicked feeling of losing a grip on the safety of a boat or something, and that they're actually slipping away and they start to drown. In that frenzy of drowning, they reach out for somebody to help them. Could be girlfriends, could be friends, could be family members or boyfriends or husbands, and they get dragged down as well. So there is what is required for that. So if I can drag you down for a couple of seconds, I won't get out the water, but I can reach slightly higher and maybe just get one more gasp of air. It comes from desperation. Borderlines are not, you won't get the narcissistic elation, the psychopathic smugness, because everything is done from despair. Everything is done from a place of panic. It's a terror. Like we use the term abandonment anxiety. I think we should say abandonment terror. The change in words informs us much better as to what's actually happening. Total terror, panic. Like I had this weird empathic experience in my last relationship, and I'm using the word empathic properly, like in the way it would be used scientifically, where I actually felt it's delusional. It's delusional. I didn't, but I thought I had the subjective experience that I could feel what my ex was feeling. And it was not anxiety. It was a crushing terror, a hyper adrenalized state of terror that I would have done anything to reduce. Anything. It was like being in pain almost. And I couldn't think about anything else. It made me single-minded because I was terrified. And I was so anxious that like I could feel my adrenaline pumping, the norepinephrine just flowing around the body as the natural speed, amphetamine takes hold. It was extremely uncomfortable, and all I wanted to do was make it stop. And for that period of time, maybe it lasted for 5, at the most 15 minutes, I understood. I stood inside that catastrophic terror, was swept away by it, and all I could feel was despair and desperation. And I would have reached for anything, and I would have done anything to make it stop even for a minute. It was utterly terrifying. The only experience I've ever had that was like it, well, I've had 2 experiences that was like it. One I'm not going to talk about in public, but the other one was I took acid. I had a bad trip, and I was terrified out of my mind for about 10 hours and would have done anything to make it stop. So I'm not suggesting that you feel empathy, sympathy, or compassion in any way that would make you make a decision that means that you think that you can love somebody who's sick better. You can't. It doesn't work like that. But you can have the empathy and compassion for you and for that person, because compassion needs to be for everybody in the system. That's the true Buddhist mindset, by the way. Buddhism is early science. Buddhism is early systems thinking. It's reason, it's rationality. Compassion in Buddhism is not a fuzzy, warm, cuddly thing. It's quite cool. It's quite a cool, detached thing. You go, okay, here's my compassion. I feel compassion for me as a human being, vulnerable, daft human being in socks. I feel compassion for you as a daft human being in socks, and the child that you once were that clearly suffered a lot to be so disturbed right now. Compassion for both of us is this relationship isn't going to heal deep-seated psychological scarring. It can't. There's nothing in this relationship that's going to do that. Only you choosing to go and get help and committing to it for, it's going to be measured in years. It's going to be a year or 2 before you see real big changes in that. If it is borderline or CPTSD vectoring into borderline, and you have to let that person go so that they can, if you walk for somebody, they can't walk. If you talk for somebody, they can't speak for themselves. You have to give them the chance to do that. If you stay with them, the 2 of you will drown. If you leave them, they have the opportunity to maybe do something about it and maybe get it fixed. But you definitely can't love somebody better under those circumstances. It's not going to work. So the false analysis, the reframing, there's this weird, with borderlines, there's many things that I find that I'm quite good at detecting borderline patterns of behavior. And I've said this even online, even through email or comments. I can pick it up in the first few seconds of a conversation with somebody. And one of the things that I look for is this weird sense of childish competitiveness. They're extremely competitive. Why? Because of shame. They're ashamed, but they're not ashamed as, a 41-year-old. They're ashamed as a 4-year-old. They've lost a game and they need to win that game. If they could just win that game. So any petty point, literally any fucking dumb thing at all that they can score against you, they'll take as a point, and it will slightly reduce the anxiety. So it's a very dysfunctional, what is that called? In the literature, it's called maladaptive. It's very dysfunctional. It's destructive to the people around them, and it's destructive to them as well, mode of being. And when I'm talking compassion, I'm saying you must have a distant compassion, a detached compassion. Because if you're attached to the outcome, if you're attached to, I need them to get better because I need this relationship, you're probably going to suffer. You're probably going to suffer quite a lot. I hope that that was helpful. It sounds like you're talking about everyone on Twitter. I don't use Twitter. I don't tweet. Okay, I'll take some questions now, guys. Mario, boa noite. Mario. How to remove them from 24/7 occupation from my mind. Well, there's a lot of different ways of doing that, mate, but seeing as I brought up Buddhism and systems thinking, why don't we look, instead of looking at the painting, why don't we look at the canvas and the frame and the wall on which the painting hangs? Are you lonely? Are you lonely? Do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel fully creatively expressed? Do you feel happy in your own life? Are you happy with the trajectory of your life? When you look at your future, are you hopeful that you'll be with somebody else? If the answer to these questions goes one way or the other, you might have an indication as to why there is at least an environment in your mind that fosters an obsessive compulsive mode of thinking about that one person. And remember your genetics and your, there is a video I put out on YouTube earlier this year about how your genes trick you into getting back with your ex. Once you've pair bonded, that is some powerful, you got these gangster genetics that are like pressuring you to get back with that person. You got to be careful of that. I'm continually triggered by my weight loss. Fatness helps me keep people away. Is it a good or bad idea to invent an interim method of being off-putting? No. That would be, I would think I'm right in saying that would be the continuation of neurosis. You don't need to be off-putting because you're safe now. You're an adult. And you don't need to keep people away because you have boundaries, and you won't just let bad people in. You will have boundaries, and when bad or toxic people come along, you can just say no and smile. So accepting having people in your space and accepting people looking at you and accepting people being interested in you might be a prerequisite to the weight loss ultimately. Sleeping with Ghost says probably. Haha, you do mean definitely. Hee. You know what I mean, you cheeky boy. Why do you always send me photos of your feet? You're weird with your foot fetish. Shardy Burns says, I know this guy. I'm not just saying that to a random person on the internet. I know this guy. Shardy Burns says, you're definitely going to suffer. Yes, if you remain conjoined with that person, the two of you are definitely going to suffer. House of Noodles said, I miss people more when I wasn't doing my hobbies. Yeah, if you're doing you and you're living your life, and that, that's a trite sentence that could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but I think it's quite profound. Like, I said this, I don't know where I said it, so maybe on YouTube. I said, like, I had this thought. I'd been reading a lot of Rumi that day, and I had a bit of time to walk around, and I had this thought that seemed profound to me. But it's profound in the way that like an 18-year-old who's into philosophy says something and they think it's the most amazing thing ever, which was my job. Sometimes I think my job is just to be the best me that I can be, the best me, and there is nothing else for me. There's nothing else for you. That's it. Like, I have to be me. And you go, well, what the fuck else would you be? Well, people spend a lot of time trying to be other things other than who they are. And my job, I don't have a remit spiritually beyond just being me. And I'll be all right if I'm being me. I'll be all right. Things will align if I'm being me. And then there's the line from the Gospel of Thomas, which is an apocryphal gospel, didn't get in the Bible. If what is within you is brought out of you, what is within you will save you. If what is within you remains within you, then what is within you will destroy you. You do have a purpose. You do have a purpose in life, and finding that purpose and living it is salvation. I tell you what, this is a bit of a woo talk, this one. It's a bit spiritual, this one. But yeah, you definitely should be doing your thing. Do you, and then you won't feel as anxious about being around people as you would otherwise. What says, I can't reference who said this right now, but someone said someone with BPD is like someone with third-degree burns. Yeah, probably because that metaphor would apply because of the boundary issue. Like your skin metaphysically and metaphorically represents your boundary with reality, and a third-degree burn would burn away the boundaries, burn away the skin, and leave the person very open to infection and hypersensitive to the air, hypersensitive to any breeze or cloth or anything. So there's no proper boundaries there, which would be a good metaphor, because people who are in the cluster B spectrum, far from being egotistical, in the case of narcissism, there is no ego. It's only superego. In the case of borderline, you've got a heavily fractured ego that's limping along, it's trying to function, but it's failing. Where's the line, says Anna, between projective identification, paranoid delusions, and self-protection? The line between projective identification and paranoid delusions. There's a lot that you haven't told me. So you've given me the picture, but you haven't given me the canvas and the frame and the wall that the picture hangs on. So I'm going to pretend I can see it. You're in a situation with somebody right now that's a bad one, and you think that they're using projective identification on you, but because they've run such a good game on you, you can't tell what's real and what isn't. So the question probably should be, is this a bad person? And I would say, well, it's not having a good impact on your ability to determine reality. So that's never good. If somebody's fucking up your ability to determine what's real and what's not, that is not a good sign. Let me catch up with these questions. Do you have an attention-getting type phrase or message? I don't have any phrases. To help someone who's trauma bonded to a covert narcissist see the light? Yes. Now the phrase, you need to say it in the right order, because if you get any of the syllables out of order, it's not going to compute right for them. It's stop being a fucking knob, and then slap him. Right, really hard in the chops. No, I don't have a phrase. I liked Louise L. Hay back in the day. Yeah, it's cheesy, and it was simplistic and whatever, but she had some good phrases, man. And she would always say, "Leave your friends alone. Leave your friends alone." Like, you do you. You've got your path. You've got your dharma. Leave your friends alone. And it can be really hard, because you can see people doing stuff that is definitely going to hurt them. But you're an adult, they're an adult. You've got your karma, they've got their karma. You've got your dharma, they've got their dharma. And if you start pushing and prodding people, it can generate really, really bad karma. Fuck it, let's stay spiritual. It's a spiritual one. Like, so deal with it. Just live with it. It's bad karma, man. Scientific, like, if we use karma as science, just cause and effect, it's bad. Don't fuck with other people's will. If your mate wants to or needs to be with somebody who you think is a fragile or covert narcissist right now, then let it be what it is. I mean, you can always say to somebody, "Hey, do you want to have a conversation about Bob? Oh, Bob, he seems so lovely, but I think the guy's a little fucked up. Do you want to have a talk about that?" And if they don't, then they don't. And then years later, if they say, "Why didn't you fucking tell me?" You'd be like, "Do you remember when I asked you if you wanted to have a conversation about Bob? I even bought you a fucking ice cream." I took you to the pond, I bought you a fucking ice cream, and you didn't want to know. So, sorry, homie, but like, you're a grown ass woman, so am I, and that's it. You gotta let people do what they're gonna do, man. Where do you draw the line with leaving them to fuck up? Very, very close to my body. My boundaries are real good these days, and yeah, people like you think about it. Like, turn this on its head. Who are you to say what when somebody is fucking up? Who am I to say when somebody is fucking up? I don't know. You'll notice like a lot of the advice I give is general and principles based. I'm not really a life coach in the sense of like, you should do this or you should. I don't fucking know. I am wearing odd socks right now. I'm wearing odd socks. There are dishes over there that I haven't done. So until the socks are on and there's no dishes, guess what? I just don't get to play guru in somebody else's life. Neither do you. Be humble. Be humble. So where's the line? Close to your body, close to your life, close to your karma. Other people want to do whatever they want to do. You let them do that, man. If it's going to hurt you, then you stop them. You stop them. But if it's only going to hurt them, that's their right. We don't know. There was a story in the Sufis tradition, and then it was in the Zen tradition about luck. I can't remember it. Like, a guy buys a horse, and then his neighbor steals the horse, and it's a beautiful horse, and the neighbor steals the horse. So he buys a horse, and everybody goes, "That's a beautiful horse. You've had good luck." And then the neighbor steals the horse, and they go, "Oh, that's really bad luck." And then the neighbor's son rides the horse and loves the horse, and because he loves the horse and he rides it so well, everybody goes, "That's really good luck." And he wins a competition and wins gold, and they go, "That's good luck." Then he falls off the horse and he breaks his leg, and they all go, "Oh, that's really bad luck." And then the king's recruiters come into town. They're like, "Everybody who's a young man of fighting age, pick up a spear because we're going to war, but not you, hop along because you got a broken ass leg." And they went, "Oh, that's really good luck because you avoided going to war because you got a broken ass leg." And then I don't fucking know. It just goes on. It's like good luck, bad luck, good luck, bad luck. You don't know the chain of events and consequences. You just don't know. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen next to that person. Maybe them doing that thing that I have judged to be a fuck up, could be lead to the most wonderful set of circumstances for them, or a lesson they need to learn, or something like that. And if I stop them, they might have to wait 3 lifetimes for the next boss to come along. They'll be like, "Thanks, mate." So let them. Permit. Like, it's really healthy, and get into the habit of just permitting people. Just permit people. Just permit. Just allow it. It's a phrase that the kids in London use. They say, "Allow it. Allow it, lad." And you should think that. Just think, allow it. Just allow it. Whatever it is, just allow it. They use it for any nonsense or interference or frustration. And they'll just say to their friend, like, "Don't get involved, it's not worth it." And they just say, "Allow it." So you just fucking allow it. Just allow that to be a thing. Say something, but don't invest. Don't be attached to it, because think about it. Like, you're then invested in somebody else altering their behavior in accordance with your values. What's so fucking great about your values? Nothing. Just let it happen, man. Somebody wrote, "Nobody knows. Just stay in your lane. Be good, do good, and worry about your own mess." Yeah. Stay in your lane is another slang phrase that I think is a really, really good one. I think it's good. It's a good thing to remember, is to stay in your lane. I'll drive my car as best as I can. You drive your car as best as you can. And let's stay in our lanes. I love how you laugh like Muttley from Wacky Races. You just revealed your age. If you know Muttley from Wacky Races. Yeah, agreed. They're trying to break free and they ask for my help. I don't feel particularly helpful, says Rachel. Yeah, I get people asking me for help all the time. But what does that mean? What does it mean? Like, you're in a relationship with somebody. What are you asking me for? You want the key to get out the front door? Oh, you already have the fucking keys, and also the front door isn't locked. So what does help mean? You want me to listen to you? I'll listen a little, but I'm not going to listen a lot, because it doesn't help you and it doesn't help me. So what do you need help with, homie? You want to leave. So okay, that's good. That's good. You want to leave. I hear you. I hear you say. I hear you telling me that you want to leave, and I'm here. And I hear you tell me that you want to leave and that you need help. Okay, you need help. I'm here. That's my help. I'm listening. I'm looking at you. I'm hearing you. But then I see you go back and stay in that relationship, even though there isn't a gun to your head. So whilst I hear you say that you need help, I see you, by your actions, stay right there. So maybe on another level, you need to stay in that relationship. Maybe you haven't learned everything that needs to be learned. And I am not going to emotionally invest either way, because that's going to be tiresome for me. So I'm just going to let you. I'm going to allow you. I'm going to permit you. It gets like, if somebody keeps asking you for help and basically they just want to go on and on and on about how awful their partner is, just make up an excuse and don't meet them for coffee. Sorry, I'm at the gym. You've become a relationship bore. I'm not going to listen to this anymore. Lith says, "Hi Richard, thank you for your continued effort and attention to these subjects. I think you're helpful for many, many people, including me, and I'm grateful." Thank you. I appreciate that. Laura says, "What about Bob?" Oh, Bob. Bobby Bob. Bobby Bobbingtons. Mariana Mendez says, "I'm a granny." And Anne says, "Hi Anne, releasing resistance is a great moment for self-awareness." Yeah. I just notice when it comes up, like, you know, because these can be, it's not an emotional flashback. I mean, it can induce an emotional flashback and it can come from an emotional flashback, but you know that neurotic urge to help and then to be involved in somebody else's stuff. And some people want you involved in their stuff. It's like, you shouldn't want to be involved in somebody's stuff like that, in this neurotic, weird, sweaty way. And they shouldn't want you to be involved in their stuff like that, in this neurotic, weird, sweaty way. You know, it's good boundaries to be able to say no, thank you. How can I learn to communicate with people without covertly manipulating them? I think if you remain true to a certain moral philosophy, and it might be feel quite fake and clunky at first, but you go, okay, this is what I believe in, these are my values, this is what I'm about, and this is my intention with this person. And I'm going to do the best that I can to stay within my intentions without manipulating them. That would be a good start. If you notice yourself becoming emotionally attached to the outcome of the interaction, detach from your attachment and observe it and say, oh, that's interesting. I seem to be really attached to them doing what I've told them to do. Why don't I get curious about this and just ask, why am I so attached to getting them to do what I want them to do? What am I trying to gain from this? Either what am I trying to win, or what am I afraid of losing? That's interesting. I didn't know that before. It's like another layer of kind of like an emotional literacy thing. Like, why am I doing this? Why does it feel this way? What do I want here? Is there an easier way of me getting what I want? What says, "Are you okay? ? You look tired tonight. Do you need us all to fuck off so you can get some sleep?" Anyway, so back to staying in our lanes and not trying to over-assist other people, especially when they didn't ask for it. Do you do live discussions today? No, I don't think so. I think just questions like this is fine. Mariana says, neurotic, weird, and sweaty. That's going to be the name of my first book. Yeah, trying to identify when things have gotten a little weird for us is important, where you're like, okay, this isn't quite an emotional flashback, but I am definitely I'm definitely in an altered state, physiologically and emotionally right now, and I'm definitely way too attached to the outcome of this interaction. Is a really, really good thing to be able to do. Kyle has asked, how can I get rid of the denial we engage in for good? Denial of what, mate? What is it that you feel like you're in denial of? Remember, as codependents, denial becomes a skill. It was a survival skill in childhood. Denying reality was something that we learned to do in order to survive. Maybe that's helpful in reviewing. It depends on what it is you're denying. If it's reality itself, sometimes that can be like a maturity thing or a self-confidence thing. Like I am strong enough to deal with reality just as it is without trying to warp it or change it. Tully Archer says, my first album will be called I Want, It's Mine, No, lol. It's a good name. Rich, BPD and autism. What are your thoughts between the two? I don't really know that much about autism, but I think from what I do know, and I've lived with, rented with two guys over the years who were diagnosed as having autism spectrum disorders. If you're in the cluster B spectrum, there's going to be a lack of empathy, right? Duh. We all know that. Like, it's a marker for cluster B spectrum disorders. And what do we see in autism? This inability to connect or a diminished ability to connect with other people in a way that the rest of us would consider to be the baseline. Like, everybody can connect like this. Everybody understands sarcasm. Everybody understands implication. Everybody understands, and then you just meet some people and they don't. Sometimes with, I think the traumatic environments that some people are raised in break their connection with humans. There's been work done about this at the University of Central London. And it's called, I'm pretty sure it's called, the work and the therapeutic model is called something like mentalization based therapy. And it was a lot to do with the ways in which if kids can't see their parents' faces and learn the meta communication of the expressions, or they're not being held and looked at when they're babies, it can do damage. So yeah, I mean, it can feel that you would experience, the connection would be for the people around them or interacting with them. The experience objectively is like you're talking and everything is fine, and then you'll hit a roadblock, and then you'll feel a disconnection. You'll just be like, oh, okay, something is not quite firing in this person right now. That would be the connection. But it could be something to do with a traumatic break with a warm, innate see, for the rest of us, even if you're raised in a traumatic environment, you've got a pre-conscious ability to connect with other humans, and they don't. Even if it's warped or damaged or there's attachment trauma there, for some people it just isn't there. They just don't have it. It's just not there at all. So I think that's a big crossover there. House of Noodle says, I have autism. And I am extremely empathetic towards most things, and more so than others. But then a handful of things I can't connect to at all. Yeah, I think this is quite typical for autism spectrum disorders. There's just an inability to connect with certain things, and nobody seems to know why. Autism is not my speciality, really. Kyle answered, denial. I said denial of what? And he said reality, from the 5th module in the Trauma Bond course. Denial of reality would be, in that context, in the context of a trauma bond, would be to protect you from pain. So if you feel like your internal boundaries are strong, like your emotional literacy is strong, and like you can handle your emotions, then you won't feel the need to be in such denial of reality. Denial of reality in that context would be a protective mechanism for pain. Is the Heal the Superego course best for one who is hyper self-critical? Yeah. If you're prone to being hyper self-critical and perfectionistic, it's a good course. Hey, says Ankats, how to impose boundaries without having people get defensive or angry? Well, maybe take away the word impose. I just have boundaries. I don't impose them. I just have them. So in my subjective experience, I don't feel like I'm putting anything on anybody. I'm like, if you are coming to me, then you are entering my house. You're entering my space, and it's my space, my house, my rules. And I smile because I'm glad that you're here. And in my head, I say, hello, human. You can approach me and you can talk to me, but I don't know, if I don't know you, then, you'll be talking to me on my terms. And nobody should get defensive or angry under that framework. But if you are overcompensating for a sense of weak boundaries or insecurity by being pushy, then yeah, you'll get pushed back. Resistance creates that pushback. I think that's quite normal for most things. So see it as boundaries are not something you need to impose. Don't impose them. Just have them and let them manifest naturally. If they're not manifesting naturally and unconsciously, there is still work to be done. And the work that needs to be done is probably around your emotional literacy. Which course is best for being numb and trying to connect back to your feelings, especially if you have PTSD? It's going to be the emotional literacy course, without a doubt. Tully says, don't care if they get defensive or angry. Some people hate when you have boundaries. I would care. I don't want people to be defensive and angry. Sometimes like when we like impose a boundary or assert a boundary, we can go into an emotional flashback because it's a taboo for us to do that. So my whole thing was always to be like, I can say no and smile. I can say no and be in a good state. I can say no and be really kind and come from a place of lovingness about it. I don't need to be in attack mode to just say no, because that's all it is. It's a polite refusal. You can only politely request that I do something. You can't tell me to do something. And if somebody's telling you to do something, you're into a different framework. You're now just like, well, you're just being rude. Like so the question changes. Like, what do you do if somebody's being rude to you? Then that's a different thing. But even then, I would, there's no real need to sort of, just because they're in a negative emotional state doesn't mean that you have to go into a negative emotional state. They're doing them, you're doing you. So I would just try and, reduce the length of the interaction if you can. Nico says, thanks, bro. You're very welcome, sir. Lith says, NPD is said to be a very rare personality disorder, yet there are a loot of people talking about this. Are we as a society more prone to victim states and projection, or is it really exponentially increasing? I think that like humanity is falling out with itself. I think we've hit some sort of peak state, and we are, there's racial tension, there's gender tension, there's sexual tension, there's national tension. The divisions are just like, what a divided little tribe we've become. So we're falling out with ourselves. And I've still not found the clip of Zizek talking about this, but it's out there somewhere. When he's asked about the NPD phenomena, he says he doesn't buy it. The idea that, there's all these different types within the cluster B spectrum and all that. He says it's basically an idea that we are simply rejecting the other, that we find the other unacceptable. And I think there's an element of that. I think it's not really about victimhood culture, it's more about us falling out with ourselves, and we more and more seem to find each other unbearable. And there are a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot of, like, I don't know whether, if we have a whole group of people who aren't concerned with the feelings of others, then they could be said to be behaving narcissistically, and so they will become unbearable. I don't think there's an explosion in NPD. I think that there's definitely an increase in personality traits and a decrease in certain other personality traits that vector in for highly narcissistic patterns of operating in the world. I think so. But also, we're just falling out with ourselves. Humanity's falling out with itself. I think as a species we've always been this way. Didn't we kill the other pre-human kinds or something? Neanderthals, I think the evidence is that we lived with them, traded with them. There are theories that we might have killed them and eaten them, because humans today have Neanderthal DNA. So some people were saying, well, we probably just ate them, which probably did happen sometimes. We probably did hunt and eat them. But also we had the capacity to breed with them, so probably that happened as well. And I think just the dominant genes just won. Thank you, says Ankat. It's the no people have trouble with, or maybe I'm a little strong with it. Yeah, well, just run an experiment. Be a psychologist and just run the experiment and say, well, wonder if I can say no in such a way that people smile or that people laugh. You refusing to do something and politely saying no shouldn't be a source of stress for people. And if it is, then the problem is with them, not you. Neanderthals never got extinct. Oh, here we go. Go on, Mariana Menendez. Educate me. Are they still amongst us now? Yeah, I think I'm in Liverpool city centre right now. I think I can hear some of them getting pissed as we speak. Perhaps there is an increase in consciousness, says A. Welker. Maybe. I think in certain ways, I feel very optimistic and hopeful about things, because there does seem to be an increase in consciousness in certain ways. Tim Fallon says, how's it going tonight, good sir? Very well, thank you. Good to hear from you, Tim. Violante says, all the issues in the world are about boundary issues, in my opinion. Yeah, I think so. You could argue that. Definitely. House of Noodles says, they do walk amongst us. My mad ex is Neanderthal. Yeah. I do sometimes wonder, genuinely, authentically, I've wondered, are we in different genetic states? Are we in different states of evolution? Well, I don't think you can see it. Like with a Neanderthal, you could see on their face where they were from genetically, and that they were genetically different to Homo sapiens. And I do wonder sometimes when walking around, and I'm like, God, fucking, I don't know. So it seems to be a definite difference in conscious awareness that is so big and so important that I do wonder, if some of us are in different evolutionary states, and Neanderthal, I suppose, would be a good way as any way of describing that. Okay. House of Noodles says, "Oh my god, I honestly feel a huge difference between certain people. Maybe I'm being very judgmental, but some do just seem so not fully there. Maybe." Shazzy says, "The forehead. All right, listen, I've got a big forehead. I don't want discrimination against my large four-headed brothers and sisters." um, okay, I think that is enough. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your attention, as always. It was an absolute pleasure. And now I'm off to me Uncle Ned.